hooked on a treasure hunt, a literal treasure hunt going on in Utah right now.
Yeah, we might have people flocking from all over the country of the like 12 listeners that listen to this. Utah does this thing, like these couple guys started a yearly treasure hunt. This year it's worth $25,000 in cash in a treasure chest somewhere in the state of Utah, and I've been trying to crack the code for a couple weeks now, much to the chagrin of my daughters and my wife, because I'm not actually out living a life, because all I want to do is go look for treasure. So
you're gonna see this guy with the metal detector next time.
It's like, man, I feel like I'm like a mid 40s version of the Goonies right now.
That would make it even better if they had people in character on site when you get closer
hey,
to
you
it.
guys, you're like, oh sweet, I'm on my way.
You're almost there. That's great.
Yeah, we'll start us off with the joke, man.
All right. This past week I created 3 new jokes.
Okay.
First one. So show a little respect is what I'm saying, all right?
Okay.
It's hard to come up with these.
Okay.
All right, first one. What do you call it when you see carnivores flying across the night sky? A meat eater shower.
Okay.
All right. This one's even better than that one. Did you hear about the guy, the game show contestant who quit because he got lemon juice and sugar in his eye? He was eye lemonaded.
That's bad, man. That's a bad one.
All right, you're gonna love this one then. There's a doctor in town who will crack your back for a good deal. The only downside is he'll also set your hair on fire. He's a chiropractor.
Oh man. Okay, there you go. You Chase are like
A man of many talents.
well, you're well ahead of your time, because most people don't start telling those kinds of jokes until they have like 14 grandkids.
Oh man, I was so proud when I came out with the eye lemonaded one.
It's pretty creative. I'll give you that. Yeah, I'll give you that.
All right, so topic for today. I just wanted to ask about release, and what is the importance of release in maintaining good mental health. A little bit of context. Over the weekend, Chelsea and I got to go down to Salt Lake for that breathwork conference.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was about release. This pent-up energy that a lot of times we hold it in, bottle it up with all sorts of stress, and then we don't necessarily do anything with it. And I'm wondering how that shows up when we don't find a way to release stress and energy.
It's a good topic, man. Like, tell me a little bit. I'm curious. How was it for you? How was the event?
It was incredible.
Was it?
Yeah, like truly incredible. And with the caveat that I know it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
It's a really intense experience. Just to explain a little bit more, Brandon has been kind of on this path recently of trying to understand energy a little bit more, different ways of releasing. He did this breathwork conference probably a month ago with this guy from Belarus, and he came back around. I got to go with my wife, and the whole concept of your time there is you're doing this breath work to get you into a state where you're more emotionally open, and then he guides you through some kind of like inner work, some inner child work, thinking about different obstacles in your life, different blockages even, and figuring out how to release the dam, and let some of these things flow more freely. Different past traumas, talking about stuff that you're worried about coming up, even, and all these different things.
Letting go of anxiety.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was really heavy, but also really liberating at the same time. So I've got it on my mind to take it a whole different direction in the stuff that we're doing
with our projects.
Maybe not totally different direction, but just kind of augment it because of how effective it was for me so far. So I'm curious in your experience, especially where you're in the trench with all these people are showing up like, man, I got this crazy addiction, or I've got these weird fetishes, or all these things that they're doing. You're like, how did you get to this?
Yeah.
Like what's your experience with any of that?
Yeah, it's I'm glad you had an awesome experience with it. I was hoping it would be good, because I was hoping it would be something that we'd want to start building into some of the things we're doing. Because we kind of have maybe a similar philosophy, and I'll share a part of that philosophy that actually came up in my group last night, that I believe that in many cases, one of the reasons why we end up in the places that we do as adults with addictions that numb ourselves out, or ways that we try to find extra excitement in our lives, or whatever the reason is that we have our addictions or our kind of unhealthy behaviors, is actually partly because we haven't allowed parts of ourselves to be released. And specifically, you think about it with, let's just take a middle-aged, mid-40s man who comes in, who's got an addiction problem. A lot of times, besides the other things that have not been able to be processed through past trauma, one of the things that has happened is that there's the inner part of ourselves, the younger child part of ourselves, that actually gets almost like calloused over. Where, you think about just being a child, the flow of emotions, free. You can cry 1 minute, you can be happy 2 minutes later. You can, it's like you got your kids screaming at you, Mom, my world's almost over. And then like literally a minute and a half after you give them a hug, they're like, well, they're off playing again. There's this free flow of emotions. There's this excitement for life. There's this curiosity about life. There's the ability to let things move. And as we go through our lives, we have experiences that tell us we can't feel certain things, or we should be mature. Or I think of like Peter Pan and, Robin Williams in the movie Hook, where he's this middle-aged, overweight man who does nothing but go to work and do his duty as a husband and a father, but he's given up that part of himself that actually needs to let himself cut loose. And he forgets that he's Pan the Man, and part of that whole movie is about finding that inner child and setting him free again. And so I think that release is actually a big part of what we do in recovery work. It's finding those parts of ourselves that maybe we've abandoned, and learning how to actually set them free in the ways that they're healthy to be set free.
Fair.
Right? Yeah. So it's probably more of an longer answer than you were looking for, but.
No, I mean, that exactly is the thing that I'm wondering about. So what are the forms of release that you've seen be effective, and what are some of the forms that you've seen that you're like, what are you doing? That is not good.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, name your addiction. Right? Like porn, sex, drugs, food, video games, social media, like all of those can be really unhealthy forms of release. Like right, if you think about it, that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to find a release, or we're trying to fill a void, right? But the other ways of release that I think have been really helpful, I'll give you an example, one that was really, really cool yesterday in one of my groups. I do these series of assignments with people when they're stuck, like maybe they're stuck in some part of a grieving process, or they're stuck in anger at their partner for having betrayed them, or something like that. In group, I do this series of assignments where I have them write letters for each emotion of the grieving process. So anger, bargaining, depression, sadness, and one of the women came in yesterday and shared her letter of anger. And she said, she kind of prefaced it and said, I've never spoken some of these things to anybody in 7 years of my process. I've never spoken any of this stuff. So here she is, she's been holding these emotions of anger, partly because she didn't feel like it was okay to be angry, partly because she didn't want to have people see the vulnerabilities of that anger and parts of the story that caused the most anger. She felt like she couldn't speak those things. And she read this letter inside of the group to a group of women who could witness the process that she was in. And it was scary and hard for her, but it allowed that emotion to come to the top. She got done reading it and she said, I just want to hit something right now. It's like, we just tossed out a few pillows and she hit some things, even in the midst of this group. And the group was there just kind of witnessing it. And then we're like, what do you need now? She said, I just want to feel loved. And all of a sudden, she's in the middle of the room with 10 other women hugging her. And you can see, you could almost physically, tangibly feel all of that energy that she'd been carrying for several years, just sort of seeping through her, out of her, and through the other women and dissipating into the room. Mm-hmm. And so that was I thought was a really powerful experience yesterday, where the combination of being vulnerable enough to allow yourself to feel it and express it to a safe place, and then to receive the value of having someone listen to and hold your story was an extremely powerful way of getting release. The other traditional ways that I think that I've felt for myself have been your traditional things we mention all the time, like EMDR for trauma work, or ART, or IFS work with parts work has been really, really helpful for the release part of it. But honestly, Chase, one of the reasons why we do what we do with our retreats is based off of the experience that we do of allowing and creating some space where there can be the acknowledgement and the release of resentments, past traumas, false beliefs, things like that. And I think sometimes physical experience allows for that too.
Yeah, it's interesting how you're framing that, because I viewed the work that we're trying to do with the retreats, and really just anything that we're doing, we're trying to move more towards experiential type work, where it's involved and connected, and there's some movement and not just thinking, which it's great to have thinking, but it seems like that's been maybe the only aspect in a lot of practices, instead of incorporating the whole self.
Yeah.
And the word experience is the thing I've been focusing on, and now I'm kind of feeling a little bit more drawn to the word release, because there is movement involved, and shift that can take place. Not that experience is a negative word or anything like that, but it just seems like that's ultimately what we've been trying to accomplish, is give space for release to take place. Part of the reason I look so much forward to it so much is because I get to do that as well. It's just as a witness, oh, cool.
When we get to participate or witness other people, it does that for us too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and maybe there even is something about witnessing somebody else experience that burden be lifted, because there have been times that we couldn't necessarily participate, say more so with the women's retreats, but at the same time, I get this feeling of just lift and enlightenment whenever I see somebody else experiencing it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Even to the point of watching it in a movie.
Yeah.
I mean, as you're talking, I'm thinking of one of my favorite movies is the movie Warrior. And it's about two brothers who have an alcoholic father, and it's an ultimate fighting kind of movie. But one of the parts of the movie is where one of the brothers is so pent up with anger and rage about the things that have happened in the past. And towards the end of the movie, there's this significant, call it a release, that happens. And when I'm watching that movie, every time it gets to that point in the movie, even though I know it's a movie and I already know it's coming because I've seen the movie 1,000 times, I tear up because there's something inside of me that's almost like wanting to allow myself to go to that place that that character is going to. And just seeing that, being a witness to that even on the screen, allows me to go, oh, Tyler, yeah, that's why I love movies like that. Yeah. It allows room, like the witness of somebody else not only makes you happy for them, but I think that ability for us to connect through mirror neurons and through empathy, it gives us permission to also let the things that are in us be moving as well.
So vicariously,
Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed myself in similar ways. I mean, you're talking about the mirror neurons. There's times where I'll catch myself making the exact same face that I'm seeing in a movie or like on somebody performing on a stage. And I'm just like, oh, why am I doing that? You know, it's because they're doing it.
Yeah.
And don't even, pick up on it till later. But yeah, kind of similarly, I was thinking about the movie Creed 3. We just watched that one recently. And that one has some really good elements to it as well. Just kind of the connection that takes place at the end of this rivalry and the way that they resolve it. You just have this feeling of love and forgiveness, and all these emotions kind of come flooding up and then out.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a huge portion of what you were talking about earlier. The accepting the emotions that you have, or allowing yourself to experience emotions fully, because I think that's something that I recognize I suppress all the time.
Well, I think it's human, and I think we have good reason for it too. We've been punished in the past if our emotions come out in a certain way, or if other people don't like it, or sometimes we've held them back so long that when they finally come out, they come out in ways that we didn't even want them to come out. I think of like my dog River. When I go take her to play fetch, I've got this little thing, it's like a floaty thing, and I'll throw it into the water and she'll go retrieve it. She can't hold still. I mean, everyone knows that. Like, we're lucky the camera hasn't been knocked over yet already. But like, I'll take her to the lake and I'll have her sit right next to me and I'll tell her to stay. And then I'll throw this thing out into the water and she will see where it lands, and you'll see her whole body tense and quiver, and she'll start shaking, but she knows that if she moves, she's gonna get in trouble. So, so she stays there, stays. Then when I finally say, okay, or release, or whatever I say, it's like a bullet shot from a gun. Just anything that's in the way is gonna get taken out, and it's gone, full bore, right? And sometimes that level of energy of release, or I'm thinking about like, what happens when water behind a dam breaks the dam instead of being released according to how it was planned.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like everyone downstream is like, oh, this is so healthy. Like, this is so good. Like, everyone downstream's like, what the, like, oh, get out of the way. Like, here it comes, we're gonna die, Like, and so there's a reason why. I mean, I think there's good reasons why so many of us get stuffed up with our emotions, but our answer is to stuff it instead of to find the proper channels. Because if we actually allow it to flow through the proper channels, it becomes this beautiful movement of a river, But if we dam, and then boom, it blows up, and we're burying all the houses below it, and there's mudslides everywhere, and and then we're looking back and going like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have showed my emotions, Instead of going like, oh, I need to find the right way to show my emotions.
Yeah.
So.
That's a good point. I was just thinking about a couple times that I've erupted on people. A lot of the hardest conversations I've had weren't necessarily conversations; they were just explosions. And,
yeah.
Man.
Then it's a repair work in the aftermath.
Yeah.
Hey, I should have said it this way or that way. Or,
that's not exactly what I meant. Just feeling a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's interesting.
It's a good topic.
Yeah, good one.
I'm thinking of all sorts of other ways of, and maybe this would be a different episode, but there's the release that you hold when you shoot a bow, you know, and what is that there for? And at least to my understanding, it's there to help steady and be more accurate. But at the end of the day, you use your finger or something to just flip the switch, and it allows that arrow to strike true to its mark. It's just done in a controlled way, right? So there's that kind of release, or the release of my dog, or the release of water from a dam, or like you start thinking about all the different ways and metaphors that we could use for the idea of release. Even just the point of stress, like today. Like, I don't know if today was the most pleasant. Like, we hiked up here before sunrise, and we were like, we've done this hike before, and I remembered it being a lot easier than it was today.
Yeah,
we got up here, I think both of us look like we just got out of the shower, but that's actually just sweat. That was a form of release. And it was like, right now I'm getting the endorphin rush of what we just did from that release of energy, and I'm actually gonna be more stress-free for the rest of the day, even though we subjected ourselves to significant stress and pain for almost 2 miles. Right? That was a form of release.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a really healthy thing for us, even though I was cursing you about, 20 minutes before we got to the top.
You were the one setting the pace, freaking booking, trying to prove a point.
I was in the release mode.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have any analogies for this tree here?
We should actually come back up here a different time and do a whole episode on this tree. But
just for reference, we're at Juniper. It's a really old tree. It's like over 1,800
years
like
old.
that.
It's still alive, even though it's only got like one little tiny spot on the tree that still has some greenery. But it's an incredible thing to see and to think about. So
Yeah,
I don't know how it relates to release, but it's definitely an awesome sight to see.
We'll come back one of these days and freestyle on it.
Yeah. So
All right.
thanks, Chase.